In 2016, Warner Brothers bought the rights for Willy Wonka and wasted no time in developing a new Willy Wonka movie that was to be the prequel to the 1971 Gene Wilder's version, a kind of origin story for the character. They selected Timothee Chalmette to play the lead role after Johnny Depp played the titular character back in 2005. Yes, it's another prequel remake from Hollywood, and it's time for the third installment of Willy Wonka, entitled simply Wonka, the latest rendition of Roald Dahl's 1964 children's novel. Wonka did some things really well, and some things that completely underwhelmed me. But I wasn't expecting too much from this movie going in, so the good thing is that I really couldn't be too disappointed. If you're looking for a fun, low-energy, feel-good musical with great visuals and sets, then this movie is most likely going to work for you. The production team did a great job getting this movie to look and feel like a Willy Wonka world. The sets and costumes are top-notch and looked as you would expect a Wonka prequel remake to look like. It's one of the few things that really felt completely finished in this movie, with the cinematography and lighting being a highlight as well. The CGI was good enough so it wouldn't distract from the story. It did what it needed to do in a way that fit into the tone and feel. This production team went a long way to finish off the details, but it wasn't the case for everything in this movie. Wonka is a lighthearted, upbeat kind of film, which is a real departure from the darker, more edgy theme and tone of the previous two Willy Wonka movies. This was an obvious and deliberate decision to create something that was more polished for the family experience, and they pretty much nailed it. If you have younger kids, they will most likely enjoy this movie a lot more than a guy like me, who is more into seeing Timothée Chalamet in Dune than a Willy Wonka musical. And that's probably an important thing to mention. This is a musical, and there's quite a bit of singing and dancing. So if musicals aren't your thing, this movie will not satisfy. But there were some important elements in this movie that really fell short. When I heard Timothée Chalamet was going to take the lead role of Willy Wonka, I was a little surprised, as I didn't get an overly positive feeling about the casting choice, but nor did I get an overly negative one. Now, having seen the finished product, his performance felt like it was 90% there. I found most of his performance to be missing those last few inches of immersion that into his role. Chalamet seemed as though he didn't emote his expressions all the way for a real, convincing performance, as if he didn't get enough sleep the night before and wasn't at full energy as he acted out his lines. Overall, his performance was okay, but it did not feel complete, something I found with a lot of the other actors' performances as well. It felt that the final bit of energy was missing, which made the story come across a little sleepy at times. But unlike a Disney movie, the villains felt like actual villains. You knew their motivations and what drove them to do what they did. For the most part, the story elements came together nicely, but there were some parts that felt like the plot was reaching to get everything to work story-wise. The sedated, sleepy feeling in the movie also came as a result of the script and storyline. The pacing of the movie didn't really give a full dynamic range, making it feel like it was in the same gear through most of the movie. Regardless of the kind of movie you make or the genre it's in, motivations with real stakes and tension is what audiences are going to commit to. I don't want to be too rough on Wonka because, as I said, there are some great creative ideas that were put into the visuals, but the sleepy script coupled with the almost there kind of acting felt as though the movie fell emotionally flat and made you never really commit 100% of your attention. The musical numbers came across in very much the same way. It felt Timothée Chalamet was singing the song and not a weird chocolate maker named Willy Wonka. There was a malaise in the musical numbers that seemed as though they were again missing that final 10% of emotional commitment to the words, dancing, and acting. That sedated feeling was spread across most of the movie from start to finish. Now, whether it was intentional or not, I would have liked a little more conviction in the acting and singing to give each character a more pronounced place in the story. Overall, the movie wasn't bad. It was more than entertaining to keep most of my attention all the way through, and it will likely do better than most people think at the box office, given the lack of competition this holiday season. There were a couple of subplots that were designed for an emotional response near the end. They were properly set up early on and well placed to give somewhat of a satisfying payoff for the audience. But then again, some of the acting came across as unconvincing when delivering the payoff. There were times that some of the actors looked as though they were just reading their lines with no emotion or expression. The delivery was inconsistent throughout the movie and felt monotone in places, and added to that kind of sleepy overtone this movie had. I've heard some people refer to what happens to City Police Chief, played by Keegan-Michael Keyes, as nothing more than fat shaming. So my personal opinion on this is it's humor, nothing more. Get over it. That's what humor does. It takes silly situations and makes it sillier to garner a laugh out of it. Olivia Colman did a fantastic job in the role of Miss Scrubbit, as did Patterson Joseph as Slugworth. And if anyone really stood out, well, it was Hugh Grant, an actor who rarely misses delivering a solid performance. This movie had a pretty big cast, with most of the performances being adequate for what was needed. The humor was well placed for the most part. Most were fun, family kind of laughs that didn't get to the point of being offensive in any way, rude or obnoxious. They blended well with the overall storyline and added enough of a giggle to certain parts of the movie to keep them interesting, where they probably would have been otherwise potentially dull. One thing I felt could have been a good idea was to add a Christmas element to the subplot. It already had a holiday kind of feel, and adding some Christmas undertones could have given this Wonka movie attention with every holiday season, just as it did for Die Hard, which is now considered by many to be a Christmas movie. If you're in the mood for a lighthearted, fun kind of movie, then Wonka will most likely satisfy that craving. It's by no means a bad movie experience. It's just that it's not a great one. There's something missing in the final execution of this movie, and the script seemed that it was reaching in some places to tie the various plot elements together. There's nothing really outstanding that Wonka does except for some of the production elements that are visually enticing. If you go to this movie not expecting too much, then that's what you will get, and most likely you won't be disappointed. It's musical bubblegum, and if you're looking for a reason to have a family outing, you and the kids should be modestly entertained with this one. Although it was far from perfect, Timothee Chalamet does create an uplifting and lighthearted feel, as his style suits what writer and director Paul King was trying to accomplish with this movie. The supporting cast did a fairly good job overall, adding to the sweet-natured mission this movie had. I actually prefer the softer and brighter tone that this Willy Wonka movie creates compared to the edgier, darker feel the previous two had. This version has a feel-good, happy tone with an optimistic edge that doesn't stray off into any really deep emotional valleys or peaks. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving Willy Wonka a score of 7. If you like what you heard, I thank you for watching and invite you to subscribe and join the Poprageous community. And if you didn't like what you heard, well, I don't give a damn. No, just kidding. We'll see you in our next video.